God of War 6 just got another update. We have news that you guys don't want to miss. So as you know, God of War has been a series that has been a mainstay for a long time, and the games have taken us through the chaos of the Greek mythology to the frostbitten realms of Norse legends. But the question that a lot of people want to know is what is next for Kratos? Well, we just got a new leak from an insider that gives us a pretty good idea about where the game could take us for God of War 6. And if you're looking at the thumbnail, yes, that is the sands of ancient Egypt. Visiting the Great Pyramids, meeting the pharaohs, and of course the gods like Ra, Anubis, and Osiris. This could be the next big adventure for the Ghosts of Sparta, and it honestly sounds really awesome. In what could be the biggest shakeup for the franchise yet, possibly taking us to an open world setting. Just the idea of Kratos battling Egyptian deities and exploring an open world Egypt sounds amazing. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into all of the details, guys. We have a lot to talk about, so check the video chapters for easy viewing. Also, I'm officially starting up the PlayStation 5 giveaways again, guys. If you want to win, it's super easy to enter. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, comment your Twitter handle, and then send me proof that you're subscribed, and that will enter you for a chance to win. I have further details in the pinned comment, and the winner will be announced at 175,000 subscribers. So jumping straight into the news, this is coming from thegamepost.com. As of reported by them, they said Sony is reportedly developing a new God of War game set in the Egyptian mythology. So the article says this, and I quote, "According to a new report, Sony is likely working on a brand new God of War game set in the Egyptian mythology." This information is coming from Daniel Richtman, or Daniel RPK, who recently shared the news on his Patreon. If you guys know Daniel RPK, he does these big info dumps. I'd say he's a fairly reliable source in the industry, but the article then went on to say that Richtman revealed that Sony is currently casting Middle Eastern actors for an unknown AAA title. He then said that the project is likely the next God of War that explores Egyptian mythology. The Game Post article then mentions that interestingly, this isn't the first time the idea of God of War exploring Egyptian mythology has come up. They mentioned the God of War 2018 documentary, The Making of, where Cory Barlog talked about how the studio initially considered setting the game in Egyptian mythology before they ultimately decided to choose the Norse path. Which Cory Barlog said this, and I quote, "I think the first pitch I gave was we wouldn't even know what was happening. So it was Kratos walking through the desert because we were, in my mind, still doing Egypt initially. Wind, sand blowing all over the place as he's kind of crawling through, and then kind of stands up over a dune and checks out this really fantastic ancient city." So it sounds like his idea of taking Kratos to ancient Egypt might end up being the direction they go for God of War 6, which isn't really a new concept at all. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know I've spoken about this idea, because usually whenever there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a ton of references, teasers, that are all pointing us in a singular direction, and that is Egyptian mythology. So if you guys played God of War Ragnarok, you know that the story of Kratos and Atreus' journey have pretty much ended in the Norse realms, and it leaves the door open for where Kratos decides to take us next. Now, there's been a lot of rumors about an Atreus spin-off game happening, which makes sense if you played the end of God of War Ragnarok, but either way, Kratos and Atreus' journey are pretty much over in the Norse realms. And from the last couple of games that have released, there's been a lot of teasers that are kind of foreshadowing an Egyptian setting. For instance, Ares has been mentioned to have went to Egypt in God of War 2005's novel. Hermes also had mentioned that he had traveled to Egypt in God of War 2's novel. There was also a note of a traveler from Egypt looking for Athena that can also be found in Ascension. Now, in the Fallen God comic book, Kratos visits Egypt and actually meets Thoth. And that's not to mention God of War 2018 was actually meant to be set in Egypt, but they decided to go to the Norse realm. One of the gods that Kratos was supposed to meet in the Egyptian time was Sobek, who is the Egyptian crocodile god that is associated with the Nile River, fertility, and military prowess as well. Now, God of War 2018 has references to Egypt as well, one being the Eye of Ra, with another one being a skint or a double crown that is typically worn by pharaohs, which was in Tyr's temple. And then, of course, in the God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC, there was multiple references to Egypt in the form of the Ankh artifact and Tyr's Kapesh. Now, that's not the only reference to Egypt either, because if you guys remember from God of War Ragnarok, we had Odin's mask, you know, the whole situation behind the mask in the rift, which that mystery we still don't have solved, obviously, but it is the mask of creation, which that's also bound to the rift of creation, although we really don't know the purpose, as it all remains really unknown. With the origin of the mask remaining a mystery, that is one of the biggest things that I think will tie us into the next Pantheon, and it is for this reason and this reason only. If you take a look at the mask of creation, you guys can see a bunch of text on the mask, and I'd like to give a shout out to this user on Reddit. They actually took the mask and put the model in Blender and took screenshots of all of the text on the mask itself. Now, if we actually take a look at the mask, you guys can see that it has right writing on it. And from what this post says, according to the God of War wiki, the texts are in ancient Greek, Japanese, and Egyptian hieroglyphs from left to right, which the current theory is that Tyr was actually helping out Odin and going across to different mythologies to collect the pieces of the mask and bring them back to the Norse realms and then scatter them across all 9 realms. And this would also explain why the mask pieces are all in different languages. You have your ancient Greek, Japanese, and of course Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now the current theory about the mask and the rift, once the mask was fully put together, it could be a portal to the higher plane, which that higher plane was referenced in the Fallen God comic, where he saw Athena in the physical form rather than the, I guess, spectral form. And then Kratos also got to meet Thoth. So we really don't know for sure about the use of the mask and the rift. It could be a way to just get to the higher planes. It also could be a vehicle to get to other mythologies. It's really hard saying. Now, Tyr had the ability to travel between different mythologies, which was explained. He has a connection to the giants who possess the knowledge of all of the realms and can provide access to them. It's how he got access to all of the pieces of the mask. And if you guys remember with the Valhalla DLC, Tyr is the one who invited Kratos to Valhalla. So, you know, he could master thyself, confront his past and his future. So when it comes to Kratos traveling to the next pantheon, it will likely be Tyr that helps him do that, which is a big difference on how Kratos traveled from Greece to Scandinavia. He was actually dropped off by a mysterious hooded woman with 3 wolves, Skoll, Hati, and what we assume would be Fenrir for the 3rd wolf. Although we're still not exactly sure. We don't even know who the 3rd wolf is, or the mysterious woman, or who blew the horn, or what the meaning of the mask and the rift is. Like, there's so many questions left unanswered that they will have to explain sometime relatively soon, hopefully with God of War 6. So with the next God of War game potentially moving us to a new mythology, could we also see the series' gameplay evolve once again? The shift from hack and slash to action adventure was a pretty massive leap for the franchise, so one could assume that they would do another big jump in terms of gameplay experience, possibly taking the series to an open world setting. Egyptian mythology is obviously vast and really rich, with deserts, lush riverbanks, the giant pyramids, mystical temples, tombs. An open world format for this game would actually be pretty insane. Like, if you ever played Assassin's Creed Origins, then you probably know what I'm saying. Like, imagine exploring the Nile River, climbing the Great Pyramid of Giza, all in one giant open world. For me, that sounds really awesome. It would evolve the gameplay once again, moving the gameplay away from the linear or semi-open world to the fully open world, larger and just more explorable environments. Like, you would still have aspects that are just more linear, but a full open world, which would be an obvious and natural evolution in the open worlds. It would still have to make sure that the game feels like God of War and plays like God of War. Having an open world format would also allow for larger scale battles. Like, imagine you're fighting a giant sandworm in the desert, or fighting on top of a pyramid. Like, there's so much potential for this. The way I'm imagining it is, like, you obviously have like your Legend of Zelda series that started off linear, somewhat open world, but for the most part pretty linear. And then as the series progressed, like, you went from really linear to a lot more open, like Wind Waker. But then the series had one giant evolution, and that was with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which introduced a fully open world, you know, non-linear, play however you want open world, which was a giant leap for the Legend of Zelda series. And I could see the same thing happening with God of War 6. They would obviously have to be careful, because a shift to a non-linear style gameplay would be pretty difficult to do in terms of narrative. And there's the fact that a lot of people are kind of getting sick and tired of open world games, but I personally think it would be an interesting direction to go. I'd be perfectly fine if they just did something similar to God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, because those games were really insane, but having an open world setting gives them so much potential to do crazier stuff. We obviously don't know what the future holds for God of War 6. Usually whenever there's smoke, there ends up being fire. From all of the references in the games to Egyptian mythology, to the novel, to Daniel RPK and other insiders suggesting that Egyptian mythology is the future for God of War 6, it certainly seems like that might end up being the case. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Where do you think God of War 6 will go? Will it be Egyptian mythology, perhaps Celtic mythology, maybe Japanese? Let me know down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe with your notifications turned on. Don't forget to enter the PS5 giveaway. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.